what's going on. I wanted to make a video on how to know if someone's telling the truth and how to be certain about it. And there's a couple ways. One, you have to feel alive, and you have to trust yourself and know thyself. So if you don't feel alive, you should definitely look into your diet. It becomes a strain. But if you don't think it's necessarily a diet or some activity that's not doing what makes you feel alive, you should do things that make you feel alive. The whole point of life is to feel and then be alive, to feel alive. That's why some call it an experience. That's all life is, through your senses. Of course, there is different dimensions beyond there, and sometimes you have to struggle to get there or do certain things. I have had some experience with it. You know, people can say that's the spiritual realm, whatever it is. And there's a couple ways to get there. Go there on purpose and try and train to go there. And then B would be to accidentally go on there, like stumble upon it. And C would be like a struggle, a deprivation of something in your life, something horrific or really unpleasurable or unsatisfying, real detrimental, that pushes you off the edge and gets there. I've been that one. I probably had a mix of all of them though. But this isn't really the purpose. That's kind of like a side note. So one, feeling yourself, and two, I guess they would play side by side, would be your gut feeling, because your gut always going to tell you what's going on. That's why like the diet plays a role. Happy gut, then everything else is aligned. So feeling your gut is a perfect example, and you should always listen. I know there's plenty of times I didn't, but you'll learn. The more you listen to it, the better things will come, and your life will head in that direction. And 3 would be when someone talks or whatever's going on, is if you feel it, you'll feel a chill in your bones, and you'll actually feel it when someone speaks, or when you hear music. You'll actually feel it. And a good example would be someone crying. That really means it when they cry. Sorry for the train. But that's basically all I want to discuss, is that you'll actually feel it. And that's what life really is when you feel something. There's a lot of music on the radio, or music being made in general, that you won't feel. You may try to relate, or in some circumstance, something around that, but you don't feel it. A lot of people talk a lot of game, but don't mean it. A lot of people can write stories, but they don't feel it. I've seen this one preacher, and you could probably relate to this really good. This one preacher, he always said kind of wise words or semi-interesting stories, but you could tell I never felt it. Yeah, it was good to hear it logically and knowledgeably, but I never felt it. So it never really resonated with me, and it was definitely non-rememberable, other than for him being almost a phony. And I get that maybe he was trying to be real, but it's different when someone goes through the experience and actually knows it. Someone can tell you to dig a hole, but they've never dug a hole before. Or someone can tell you how to make music, but they've never actually attempted to do it, even though there is no real way. But it's different from somebody who's experienced it and been through something, whereas they're just spitting out words. And I'm not one to toot my own horn or boat or whatever you want to call it, but you can tell that I mean it just by the way I say it. And it's not even by I say it, it's because I feel what I say. Hence, this is why when this preacher would say all these things, and then there was like pretty much the owner, he hired the preacher to give us speeches and guide us or whatever, but he didn't. He made everything completely worse. He was the complete opposite of what was going on. And this guy, who the owner of the business, he's been through it and he's had experience. Whether I didn't like him or not is not the point. He would come in and say one word, way less, just even one word, one sentence, and I felt that I know what he was saying and resonated, where other guy could go tell a whole story that he wrote and I wouldn't feel it because there was no connection there. There was no feeling behind what he was saying. It was just all a bunch of knowledge and theoretical thought and logic that doesn't mean anything. Life is not based on what you can think of. Yeah, it can be beneficial in some ways, especially because a lot of people are numb nowadays and they're disconnected from reality and nature, and there's noise pollution, or they got headphones on. They're just not integrated into the wild, so they miss this. And that's the mere aspect, is we're actually disconnected from nature. That's all the problems. We are forced upon it pretty much for religion, but religion's just a manipulation method and a control method pretty much, and then they implement all these other things into it. It's just a way of conquering, though they did do it physically, but now it's kind of more of a metaphysical way and a brain game. And the reason why anybody's sick or anything, 99% of people, is because they're disconnected from nature, along with a lot of feelings, depression, and maybe some loneliness along with that. So be aware when the person who's speaking to you, he doesn't need to stare you down when he talks to you. Someone who stares you down all the time, there's something wrong with them. Someone shouldn't be staring at you the whole time. There's nothing wrong with making eye contact, but to me, you don't need to stare at someone. I can't even process. Yeah, I can stare at someone if I wasn't talking, but to talk, you need to basically have some thought, some recognition between that. So you would feel it in your gut, you'd feel a chill in your bones, and you have to be alive to experience it. You know, someone who's maybe numb from doing a bunch of heroin, for example, I can't tell you about it, but I've seen how people react to it and how it does to them. They're probably not aware of it, maybe to a certain degree, and you could tell them honest words, but it won't resonate with them because their vibrancy is too low, and they're numb. They're numbing what is going on. So yeah, you don't want to lose how you feel because you're connected. And what I was talking about, the metaphysical, it's hard to it's beyond sensations basically, and it's beyond, it's really like a transparency. It's something, it's like an out-of-body experience in a way, and you're not sensing it really through your feelings. You are, I guess, but it's more of like electric feel. And I guess I'll give my example because it was real short, and it was definitely when I was real sick. I mean, there's notable times that have happened to me, but one of the times, it's basically like, I don't know, one of the times, and it kind of was recently, I was down by a spot that I go to near the water, and I was just like, I closed my eyes next to, you know, the water, and I was standing real close to it, and it was real weird. It was just like, well, weird not in a bad way, if that means anything, but like I think I had my hands together, I was praying, and I was standing up too. I went into like almost like, it's not a room, but kind of like a cave. It was completely dark, and it was like, it's really hard to describe the atmosphere, because it's almost like there was no atmosphere, but it was dark. I wouldn't say gloomy, but maybe near. It was and this was at night I did this, sorry. This was at night when I did this, but I was taking, like, just seeing through her eyes, but my eyes were completely shut, and just like what was going on, there was some figure like on maybe like a rock or something, and I was just in this dark place, but I was completely conscious of this actually, and it was just me staring. It was kind of like, there's maybe like a cave, kind of like, if you know, like a Grand Canyon. It wasn't nothing. I'm just trying to give you like how maybe the room, it wasn't like a room though. It was like a space, and it was just completely dark, and there was nothing there. It was just like this kind of like person sitting on a rock in front of me. Not really even sitting, but yeah, it just, there really is no explanation of it, but that's what happened. And so I guess it is something you still feel necessarily. It's kind of like when you have a dream and maybe you felt something in a dream, you know, it's kind of different. It's not necessarily vivid through the senses, but you kind of still feel it through a non-physical sense. So that's my story. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Check out some of my other videos. Tell your tall tale in the experience box below. Thank you. If you have any video requests, let me know.